Good afternoon. My name is Scott Redler, Chief Strategic Officer of T3 Live, which you just saw, and welcome to today's recap and look ahead. So, market started off semi-strong, into probably around 11:30, 12, and then all of a sudden a new poll came out, favoring Brexit versus Bermain. I don't know if it's true. I don't know if it's valid. The bookies still have it at like 75%, but if I were just looking at the patterns of the actual market, I would think that it's somewhat vulnerable. That's why I'm flat overnight. Some of the charts are saying potentially be short, but you know what? I don't know what kind of news could happen for tomorrow. Maybe it'll be different. I don't know. I'm just whatever. There's more than enough movement. But overall, I've been favoring from the long side, but I would think that tomorrow maybe we could have some vulnerabilities before the actual vote. But we shall see. You look here at the chart of the spiders, and people want to know like what's a red dog reversal. Well, you've had two of them into this like a little resistance, where basically it traded above the prior high. This was 208.92 and closed in the lows. So that means sellers took control towards the end of the day, and now we have a gap underneath. I don't know if it wants to fill the gap first, what it wants to do, but these two topping tails into resistance back below the moving averages has me a little cautious. But with headlines and a binary event coming, maybe just keep your size down. The Qs still remain weak. The Qs tried to break above the prior high also, closed on lows, looks weak, and now we'll see what happens here on this 3-day pivot. Still well below this range here. 2016 highs were here, never made a new high, so the Qs don't look so good, either does tech. Now everyone knows I love trading high beta tech stocks, especially when they have good patterns, and these patterns don't look so great. I've been trying to lean that if we get a remain, the market could break above 2100, go 2130, but some of these things look vulnerable, so maybe I'm getting a little bit more neutral. I hate to flip-flop, but we trade real time and patterns change real time. I don't want to be like Gartman or this and that, but obviously he thinks he's a big long-term guy. We're traders. We trade the action, or at least try to. But if you look at high beta tech, kind of vulnerable. First of all, Tesla, done, broken, okay? You can't be long this thing. You can only trade it technically. We caught a nice long. I talked about getting up to 205-ish, okay? And that's where you could put a short on or maybe play long until, and that's where it went to and closing the lows. Big gap down, below all the moving averages. Not a strong stock. Thank goodness it wasn't strong beforehand, so no one had to be in it and take the pain of it. So now we'll see what happens tomorrow. Some guys went out short. If you did, okay. We'll see, there's a lot of room to where it reversed from, and then now there's even not many more unknowns. But in the first 5 minutes, it was a good trade. A lot of us made, if you have your plan and you're technically savvy, okay, here was your first move. I bought it around, I think, 199, made it one above 200, sold it into 203.5, didn't touch it again. Then this one was even more calculated. Came back down, tested it, went there, did a false move, which these things do, and then faded the rest of the day. But for now, Tesla is broken. Okay, then you go into other high beta tech stocks. Google, they tried to, support it today. They tried to talk about how that downgrade that made this break this ascending channel was a little, it was taken out of context. Well, it's still building a bear flag that looks pretty, pretty vulnerable. Again, vulnerable. This, you have a stock like Google that's been in a big time range here, hovering near lows, not looking, that's not showing you momentum. It's showing you vulnerability. It never filled this gap, so you have to be cautious. Netflix, last time we talked about the pattern here, it was a bear flag, and maybe you could see lower prices, and that's what this did. So, now you have this also broken, besides Tesla, so, and some other ones. So here is that move. Most guys made money short here. It gave you a little bit of movement around this pivot. But ultimately, the sellers took control, and it's below every moving average, and there's no reason to be long it, except for a micro trade for 3 to 5 minutes. Then you have Facebook, which, has its moments when it looks okay, but really, you want to talk about momentum, it's, below the 50-day. It broke this symmetrical triangle here. It's still a $330 billion market cap when LinkedIn only got taken out at 26, and it's hovering in this lower channel, not above momentum moving averages, not following a trend like this that got broken, or it's, it's vulnerable. So you got to take your trades and be a little cautious. and especially from where it is. So at this point, that's not showing you anything special. Amazon, I was long overnight, got stopped out. It too is having a little bit of trouble for the leadership role it's supposed to be playing. Pinching into this spot here, which at some point it could break. If the market goes lower, it's probably going to be to the downside, and then you might even see this. It's definitely hard to gauge at this point. There's no power there, but it's not falling apart. But it doesn't have many friends. Facebook doesn't look like it's ready to make highs. Google's hovering on support. Netflix has been to the downside. Tesla's broken. So that whole area that's supposed to be strength is not. Then you have Apple. Everyone's like, oh, can we buy Apple? I'm like, you don't buy Apple on the second up day. It hasn't worked. And then this reversed. Okay, where did it reverse? It reversed into the 21-day, which has been resistance. So, at this looks, vulnerable too. Doesn't look like it has momentum and ready to break out or any of that kind of stuff, which we all like to play. If you draw your trusty line here, it's, it had a little red dog reversal yesterday, opened up and closed on lows. Nothing really doing here, except for it's below the moving averages, below the 200-day, not technically sound. Well, this is the recent pivot. And then you go to the risk-off type of assets. We talked about the TLT and the outside day in gold and the miners. Well, today, they gave you the signal to cover your short if you've been short since June 16th or so, and maybe nibble long. What's that look like? Okay, let me show you what it looks like. Look at the TLT. If you got short into this topping tail up here, okay, you made a decent amount of money. Now what did it do? It held the 21-day, gave you a red dog reversal. What's a red dog reversal? A red dog reversal is when it trades below the prior low, which was 133.46, makes a new low. This was 133.25, comes above it. If you sold it here and you were looking to buy a dip, well, this held the 21-day and that was your entry. So if we're going to come off, this probably is a good entry. If you look at the GDX, it also, small red dog reversal. Okay, if you sold it when it couldn't, hold above resistance, then here it did a red dog reversal around this pivot around the 21-day. Traded below 24.91 with a low of 24.80, 11 cents. And if you bought it when it reclaimed it because you have a thesis for the miners, 11-cent risk for a nice profit. So now you'll see whether or not that continues. If you're in the camp that you like gold and you like miners, some guys had a good trade in the Nugget also. What's a red dog reversal? Okay, well, if you sold up here or got short when it couldn't hold this prior resistance, and then maybe you added here when it broke below that, well, now it went below the prior few-day low, which was 93, whatever that is, 93.55, made a low at 92.34, so $1.30, and then reversed. You could have bought it here, put a stop at the low of the day, hit the 50-day, and made $6. And the good book says take a little overnight, or if you don't want to have overnight risk, then you just took it as a day trade, and that was a good tactic. So, in conclusion, as I look at the charts are looking a bit more vulnerable than not. So at this point, I'm flat. I'm going to figure out what happens tomorrow, where we're going to be at. Are we vulnerable because every second they're talking about Brexit on TV and all the risks that could happen if it happens, like Black Friday, Tornado Monday. So maybe that's what's causing this type of environment. And then when they don't leave, we get a gap up and then no one's involved and that gets your runaway situation. I don't know yet. But at this point, if you've overstayed your welcome in certain trades, you've given back your day. Whether it was today, the bios had a quick bounce and looked great, and then if you bought that dip, it didn't really bounce much. If you play some of these high beta names, whether it was Netflix around the pivot, you had to take the trade. Whether it was the Tesla first 15, 30-minute long into the short, you've had a flip side. So, keep trading, keep moving those feet. Don't have too much conviction because the market is not really rewarding conviction. And we'll talk more about this tomorrow. Have a good night.